Before we dive into this captivating story, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our heartwarming narratives. Now settle in and embark on this journey of discovery and resilience. The reflection of the setting sun turned the mansion's windows into panels of liquid gold as Cassidy Blackwood surveyed her meticulously kept property from the garden. The 3,000 square feet of land in the city's most exclusive neighborhood represented more than just a real estate investment. They were a physical testament to everything she had achieved. Her grandmother's inheritance had enabled her to make the purchase, but every tile, every ornamental plant, and every detail of the interior design was the result of her hard work. Cassidy took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. The email she had just received from her accountant, showing unauthorized transactions in her corporate accounts, burned in her mind like fire. Suddenly, many things began to make sense. "I thought you'd be out here," Blake's voice sounded behind her, laced with a false cheerfulness that Cassidy had learned to recognize in recent months. She turned to face the man she had shared her life with for the past 4 years. Blake Blackwood, standing at 6 feet tall, with impeccably styled hair and a rehearsed smile, was wearing the custom-made Italian suit she had bought for his birthday the previous year. "We need to talk," he said, brandishing a black leather folder that Cassidy recognized as part of the set she had ordered for her home office. "About?" Cassidy kept her voice steady, determined not to let the whirlwind of emotions consume her. "Our future, our assets, this house." Blake gestured broadly around them, as if he was the lord of everything the light touched. "I think it's time we got everything in order." A chill ran down Cassidy's spine. She knew exactly what was coming, but she decided to let Blake lay his cards on the table. "Let's go to the office," she replied, walking toward the house without waiting for him. Cassidy's office was her personal sanctuary, furnished with classic dark wood pieces. It was filled with shelves packed with books on business, leadership, and inspiring autobiographies. The walls displayed certificates and awards that testified to her rise in the corporate world. It was there, seated in her Italian leather chair, that she had closed deals that had transformed her small consulting firm into an empire. Blake sat across from her and opened the folder, spreading printed documents across the mahogany desk, a gift she had given herself when she landed her first 7-figure contract. "We need to discuss asset division," Blake announced with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Since we're married, everything should be split 50-50. Cassidy regarded him with an analytical gaze, the same one she used during tough negotiations. The man sitting across from her was wearing a suit she had bought, seated in a chair she had paid for, in an office she had built with her own money and determination. "Really?" Cassidy asked, raising an eyebrow. "And what exactly was your contribution to all of this, Blake?" Blake's face flushed slightly, but his smile didn't waver. "Cassidy, darling, you know well that while you were building your business, I was taking care of our home, our life. I provided emotional support. I kept things running here so you could focus on work." Cassidy almost laughed. "The house was maintained by a hired team that she paid, weekly gardeners, cleaners who came 3 times a week, a chef who prepared frozen meals for the entire week, and various specialists she called for any necessary repairs." "Blake," Cassidy began, keeping her voice calm despite her rising indignation, "let's clarify a few things. This house was purchased with my grandmother's inheritance money before I even met you. All the documents are in my name. Every mortgage payment, every renovation, every improvement was paid for by me." Blake shrugged, as if it were just an insignificant detail. "We're married, Cassidy. The law says I'm entitled to half." "The law?" Cassidy repeated thoughtfully. "Interesting that you mentioned the law." She opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a thick folder, carefully organized with colored dividers. "Since before our marriage, I've been meticulous about keeping my premarital assets separated and documented. Every transfer to our joint account, meant only for household expenses, is recorded. All mortgage and tax payments came from accounts that are exclusively mine. Blake's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. I have a lawyer who disagrees. Thomas Garrett has a lot of experience with cases like ours. Thomas Garrett? Cassidy couldn't help but let out a brief laugh. The lawyer who advertises on bus stops and has had issues with the Bar Association. That's your expert? He prepared these documents. Blake pushed the papers toward her. I'm requesting the house, half of your business, and my family jewels. The cabin in Vermont? Cassidy interjected, quickly flipping through the documents. Yeah, I see. What Blake didn't know was that Cassidy had been aware of his intentions for weeks. The unauthorized use of her corporate card to pay for Garrett's services was just the beginning. Her mother had warned her about Blake's persistent questions regarding deeds and appraisals of family assets. You know, Blake, Cassidy said, leaning back in her chair, I think we need to discuss this more calmly. How about we have dinner tonight? We can talk about everything in a more relaxed setting. Blake's smile widened, mistakenly interpreting the suggestion as a sign of weakness. Perfect. I'll prepare something special. As Blake left the office, Cassidy grabbed her phone and sent a message to Rachel Thornton, her lawyer. It was time to put into action the plan they had meticulously crafted over the past few weeks. Candles flickered on the dining table, illuminating the fine china that had belonged to Cassidy's grandmother. Blake had gone all out with the presentation, using the most expensive pieces in the house, all of which belonged to Cassidy, of course. The red wine breathed in an opened bottle, a 2010 Bordeaux that Cassidy had purchased on a trip to France. Everything is delicious, Cassidy commented, tasting the filet mignon that Blake had ordered from a nearby five-star restaurant, paid, no doubt with her card. Blake smiled, refilling Cassidy's glass. I thought we deserved a special night, considering we're discussing our future. After dessert, Blake wiped his lips with the linen napkin and placed a folder identical to the one he had shown earlier on the table. Cassidy, I need you to understand my position. His voice took on a tone she recognized well, the same one he used when trying to convince potential partners in his never-materializing business schemes. During our marriage, I sacrificed my own career to support yours. While you worked tirelessly, and I admit you're practically a workaholic, I kept our life in order. Cassidy bit her lip to keep from interrupting him with incredulous laughter. Blake had never had a career to sacrifice. Before meeting her, he had worked as a mid-level manager at a marketing firm, a position he willingly quit shortly after their wedding to pursue more lucrative opportunities that never materialized. These documents, Blake continued, pushing the papers toward her, are just a formalization of what's fair. If you don't agree, he paused for dramatic effect, I'll have to ask you to leave the house tonight. Cassidy glanced at the documents, then at Blake, and finally at the house around them. The house she had dreamed of, planned and paid for. For a moment, she felt a pang of sadness, not for what she was about to lose, because she would lose nothing, but for what she had never truly had, a partner who valued her for who she was, not for what she owned. Following Rachel's careful advice, Cassidy took the pen Blake offered and signed the documents. Done, she said, standing up calmly. She took the key set from her pocket and placed it on the table. As you requested. The shock on Blake's face was instantaneous, as if he hadn't expected her to give in so easily. He had braced himself for tears, pleas, negotiations, not for this calm acceptance. I'll be back tomorrow to pick up some clothes, Cassidy said, walking toward the door. Good night, Blake. As she drove to the five-star hotel where she had booked the presidential suite earlier that day, Cassidy allowed herself a small smile. Blake was so busy savoring his apparent victory that he missed the crucial detail. She had signed the documents with her maiden name, legally invalidating the signature. The sun had barely risen when Blake's phone rang incessantly. On the other end, Thomas Garrett's shrill voice sounded almost hysterical. What the hell did you do, Blake? You said the house was in both your names. Blake, still groggy, sat up in the bed he had shared with Cassidy. "What are you talking about? She signed the documents last night." "I'm talking about," Garrett continued, panic evident in his voice, "the email I just received from her lawyer, Rachel Thornton. Do you have any idea who Rachel Thornton is? She's one of the most respected family law attorneys in the state." "So what?" Blake asked, beginning to feel a chill in his stomach. "So what is that your wife never put that house or any other significant asset in her name? Everything is in a trust fund called CBW Holdings Trust, established 2 years before you got married. You fraudulently tried to claim a property you never legally owned." Blake dropped the phone onto the bed, feeling the world spin around him. He jumped up and rushed to Cassidy's office, frantically searching drawers for documents that could contest this information. In a locked drawer that he managed to force open, he found the trust fund documents, exactly as Garrett had mentioned. The sound of a car parking in the driveway caught his attention. Through the window, he saw Cassidy stepping out of her Tesla, accompanied by 2 people he didn't recognize. When the doorbell rang, Blake was already at the door, his face contorted in a mix of anger and desperation. "Good morning, Blake," Cassidy greeted him with icy formality. "This is Rafael Montero, a forensic accountant, and Sofia Almeida, a process server. We're here to document the assets to be included in the divorce proceedings I initiated this morning." Blake paled, but stepped aside to let them in. As Rafael began photographing and cataloging items in the house, Cassidy led Blake to the living room. "I thought you agreed to the terms," Blake murmured, his previously confident tone now reduced to an insecure whisper. "Oh, those documents." Cassidy smiled slightly. "I signed as Cassidy Williams, my maiden name. Legally invalid. But that's just a technical detail, Blake. The real issue is that you tried to defraud the judicial system." As she spoke, Cassidy pulled out her tablet from her bag and began tapping on the screen. "What are you doing?" Blake asked, watching her nervously. "Just making some necessary financial adjustments," Cassidy replied. "I'm deactivating all your credit cards, cutting off your access to corporate accounts, suspending the financing on your BMW, canceling your expensive gym and club memberships, and, oh yes, removing your access to the smart home systems." Blake sank into the sofa, feeling the weight of his actions crashing down on him. "You can't do that." "Actually, I can. Everything is in my name, remember?" Cassidy put the tablet away. "Oh, I almost forgot to mention. During the preliminary financial investigation, we uncovered some interesting things, like your secret account with $37,000 from selling my rare books and family silver, and your special friendship with Jessica, the personal trainer to whom you gave my family jewels." The shock on Blake's face was priceless. "How did you—" "People talk, Blake, especially when they find out they've been used in a fraudulent scheme. Jessica became particularly cooperative when she learned the jewelry you gave her was stolen family heirlooms." By late afternoon, the moving truck parked in front of the mansion. Blake, now visibly deflated, oversaw the few items that actually belonged to him being loaded. His brother Daniel, the only family member who answered his desperate call, helped carry boxes into the small rented truck. "I don't get it, man," Daniel commented as they loaded a box of clothes. "You lived in this amazing mansion and barely have enough stuff to fill a small truck?" Blake didn't respond. The truth was too humiliating. Almost nothing in that house had been bought with his own money. The neighbors discreetly watched from their windows and gardens. The spectacle of Blake Blackwood's downfall proved more interesting than any television show. In the office, Rafael Montero presented his preliminary findings to Cassidy. "According to our forensic analysis," the accountant explained, displaying detailed graphs on his laptop, "Mr. Blackwood did not contribute a single cent to household expenses during the 4 years of marriage. At the same time, he spent approximately $342,768 of your money on supposed business development and professional advancement activities." Cassidy nodded, unsurprised. "And the missing items?" "We're tracking the transactions," Raphael replied. "We've already located 3 pieces of jewelry sold at different pawn shops. As for the rare books, he sold them to a private collector. We've contacted him, and the collector is willing to return them for a refund." The doorbell rang, and Sophia, the process server, entered the office. "Mr. Blackwood is ready to hand over the keys and sign the final documents." At the front door, Blake looked like a shadow of the confident man who had confronted Cassidy just days before. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and deep bags marked his face. "Sign here, confirming that you're leaving the property voluntarily and acknowledging that you have no rights to it," Sophia instructed. "Extending an official document." Blake hesitated for a moment, looking at Cassidy with a mix of anger and pleading. When he realized there was no room for negotiation, he signed reluctantly. "The keys," he said, handing over the complete set to Sophia. Cassidy, who had been watching the scene a few steps away, finally approached. "One last thing, Blake. We found your plan to turn my house into a rental property after kicking me out. Quite ambitious, considering you had no idea how the real estate market works." Blake flushed deeply. "How did you—" "Your email was synced with the house's system," Cassidy explained. "Every search for how to manage luxury rentals and maximizing profit with high-end Airbnb was automatically recorded." Blake had no more words. With one last look at the mansion that had never truly belonged to him, he turned and walked toward the truck where his brother waited. Cassidy watched the vehicle drive away, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. She hadn't lost anything that truly mattered. Instead, she had freed herself from someone who never truly valued her. In the following weeks, Cassidy dedicated herself to reclaiming her space completely. All the locks were changed, the smart home system was reprogrammed, and a professional cleaning team removed any trace of Blake from the property. Gradually, she brought back the personal belongings Blake had subtly banished over the years. Books he deemed too intellectual, family furniture that didn't match his preferred aesthetic, and professional awards he insisted should be kept in the office so as not to intimidate guests. The garage, which Blake had transformed into a rarely used personal gym, became the library Cassidy had always dreamed of. The walls were lined with floor-to-ceiling oak bookshelves, and a brass sliding ladder allowed access to the upper levels. A soft leather sofa and comfortable chairs created a sanctuary for the reading moments she cherished. Spaces once dominated by Blake's tastes were redesigned to reflect Cassidy's personality. The home theater, previously decorated with action movie posters, now showcased contemporary art and photographs from her travels. The bar, which Blake kept stocked with expensive drinks to impress his friends, was transformed into a tea and coffee space, complete with fine china and exotic blends from around the world. 6 months after Blake's departure, Cassidy hosted a dinner in her renovated home. Unlike the ostentatious parties Blake insisted on throwing, this gathering was intimate, filled with true friends who had stood by her during tough times. Rachel, her lawyer who had become a close friend, raised a glass in a toast to Cassidy for showing us that true strength lies not in destroying those who hurt us, but in protecting what has always been ours and letting them destroy themselves through their own actions. Everyone raised their glasses, and Cassidy felt a wave of gratitude for the life she had built and protected so carefully. Looking around the table at the smiling faces of friends who genuinely cared for her, Cassidy knew this was the true wealth that no one could ever try to take from her. The next morning, while sipping coffee on the porch overlooking the spring garden, Cassidy received an email from her accountant. Blake had declared bankruptcy after a series of disastrous investments and was temporarily living on his brother's couch. The family jewels he had given to Jessica had been recovered, and the rare books were on their way back to Cassidy's library. She closed her laptop and watched the birds at the feeder she had recently installed. The house around her was not just an impressive physical structure or a valuable investment, It was a symbol of her journey, her independence, and now her victory. Not a victory based on destroying her ex-husband, but in protecting what had always rightfully been hers. The mansion was hers. The life was hers. And now, finally, the future was entirely hers as well. If you enjoyed this story of triumph and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your reactions are the fuel that motivates us to continue bringing more exciting stories like this one. Until next time,